Joining me is Tom LoBianco. He is formerly, he's a refugee of the Messenger, which I'm going to have to spend some time talking to you about. But now you have
For sure.
joined the world of independent reporting and journalism, and you are a credit to it. Before we go any
Thanks, sir.
further, let's talk about that. Where can people find your work these days?
Yes, of course. It's called 24 Sites, our new website here. It's the number 2424 and then SIGHT, clever little play on words, focused on the critical dynamics shaping the race for the White House here. Go to 24site.news. Sign up. It is we're on Substack. I do a daily news rundown, the 24/7. That part is free. Our reporting, however, is behind the paywall because we need to get fed.
People gotta eat. People gotta eat. Without a doubt. And let me. We will not spend a ton of time on this, but I always joke on the show that as journalists, the number one story that we all universally really love the most is journalism. And so since you came out of this absolute fiasco, which has gotten probably more ink about its ending than it did during its run through, can you just tell people about your experience? This is a very, very highly capitalized website, has a glittering list of talent, and then it's gone, literally gone, within 8 months. The archives deleted. The website vanished as if it never existed. Tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Whew. Well, I'll start by saying if you've got $50 million, call me. I've got some different ideas about how to use it, and we will put out a good product with it. I mean, it's sad, frankly, because it is terrible because, look, we, the reporters, the journalists, we came from a number of publications, across the span, obviously a lot of folks from the New York Post, a lot of folks from Politico. I was at Yahoo News before that, folks from The Hill, CNN, you name it, and tons of top talent in there. And we broke some really big stories. I remember when we started in May of last year, the Messenger was not even indexed on the Google. It was not like you could not Google it.
No.
It did not exist at that point. And I remember I was on CNN with Jim Acosta. It was after the Joni Ernst roast and ride back, I think it was June of last year out in Iowa.
Yep.
And whoever wrote the script, said, Tom LoBianco, national politics reporter with the Messenger out of it was Dubuque, Iowa or something. And I mean, that was the Messenger that existed.
That was it.
Yeah. But, we put it on the map. And chasing clicks, and I mean, trying to look for a silver lining here.
Sure.
Chasing clicks seems to be declining as a way of making money, which is a good thing. I mean, I think that's healthy for our country.
Large, on a big picture, good thing. Not a good thing for the amount of talent that you guys had there at the Messenger.
Well, I'll say this, and I mean, this is, something I was going through. I was in the first round of layoffs back at the beginning of January, and there was a hope that, by letting go of some folks on the payroll, that would create some buoyancy for everyone else to survive. Obviously, that did not end up happening, and the fiscal situation internally was just not great. We had two giant empty offices, one off of K Street, an entire floor on K Street in downtown Washington, and an entire floor in Midtown Manhattan.
Which aren't cheap, even these days. Yeah. Even these days, where you can get them at a discount, they are not cheap.
It was, and when it went down, afterwards I was trying to figure out what to do, whether to try to go back into a quote unquote regular newsroom.
Yep.
And I looked at this and I said, it's not just us. I mean, the Messenger it was a spectacular collapse, and which is sad because we were reaching a point where we were starting to get a lot of notice. We were established. We were showing up, playbook, on air. We established, and that was us. We did that. The reporters, the journalists, the editors. We put it on the map.
The news. You guys, I mean, this is a scoop driven industry, and you guys were breaking the news.
Yes, we were doing great. And I looked at that, and I was like, if we can do that for people that want to make tons of money on return on investment. I mean, you'd have serious journalism. Our reporting about the 2024 campaign. Matched with, I mean, these were literal stories that were being put on the website to drive traffic. I think there was like a viral TikTok post about whether eating bee pollen makes your breast grow bigger. Yeah. That was a big performer on the Messenger website. Yeah. And as I was looking at this, what to do next, I was like, well, maybe we can take the serious reporting, sell that to an audience that values this, and we can forego the TikTok insanity. And that's what we're doing right now.
Well, Tom, for however long you are here with the rest of us beyond the wall, the feral wildlings of independent journalism, we welcome you, and I think you're going to do a great job because
thank you, sir.
At the end of the day, all that matters is actual content. And if you can cut the overhead of all the BS, then I think it still is a profitable way to make a living. So let's get into that.
Yes.
What is your pet theory of why Nikki Haley is still in this race? Because it seems to be the new gossip online is, well, it's for 28. She's stealth running for VP. This is really just about, as long as the money from either Democrat or Never Trump donors are coming in, you might as well keep taking it and then roll it into something down the road. What makes the most sense to you?
This is something when I was writing the Pence biography and, going through this when it came out about 4 years ago, going through the process of researching this and, writing about his machinations back then, really helped me understand this now because, very often it's not one clear trajectory. It's about creating opportunities. She absolutely could run in 2028. She could be positioning herself to be the running mate. I mean, in a very real sense, and you have to look at how transactional Donald Trump is. I mean, the guy placed the kiss of death on Ron DeSantis for months and months and months, and that kiss of death did not work. It's a hell of a kiss. And until it did, and then he's like, okay, this guy's cool. He's on the team. Yeah. So sheer transactionalism, nothing new in politics, of course. Yeah. So potential there. Maybe she wants to be a leader of a post-Trump Republican Party. I mean, it's not. You look at the numbers coming out of South Carolina, and there's a distinct plurality of Republicans and independents who vote Republican who just will never go with Trump. And that is a problem. If you're Trump, of course, it's a central problem. But for the Republican Party writ large, those people don't show up to the polls. That hurts everybody. So all of these things are options that are open to her. And on the other side of the ledger, she's getting the money coming in. The support is staying with her. It's not going away. There's no incentive to leave. So, if you view this, through a carrot and a stick dynamic, everything is saying yes, stay in.
Except for getting blown out by 20 points in your home state where you were a two-time governor. That's the thing is like right now, and I don't look. Politics is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. Our primary system has changed tremendously, even over the last 50 years since it was established. But normally, at least in my lifetime, that is a black mark that you don't want on your resume, because if you are going to run going forward, you want to prove that there is electoral viability in your home state with the people that know you the best, and losing by 20 is usually something that you want to avoid. Look, for however she's going to do, and whatever a figurehead she is for either never Trump Republicans or in primaries where you can cross over Democrats, she is going to lose, and she's going to get the embarrassments are only going to compound leading up to Super Tuesday, where she's going to pretty much be mathematically out of the running. So shame in politics is something we've talked a lot about. Is there just no electoral shame, even from people that aren't Donald Trump?
I mean, you got sitting members of Congress being recorded, performing sexual acts and Beetlejuice musicals. So, yeah, I think the answer is no, there is no shame. Now, that said, and, this is going into this cycle, was something that, we were all looking at. I do think that we're still heading towards a post-Trump Republican Party. I don't think, there used to be this discussion of elasticity, whether things revert, quote unquote, revert back to normal. That's not going to happen.
I don't know. That is not.
The populace, this rejiggering around trade, blue collar, those issues, kind of the end of economic conservatives inside the party. I think that's fixed, and Nikki Haley really represents a lot of that. I'm not sure she's the person that would actually carry this forward. But you see people testing the bounds, you see people testing the limits, and again creating pathways to where they can run again. Remember, this is you're always running for president. The old joke is that every time a U.S. senator wakes up in the morning and looks in the mirror, the first thing they see is a president.
Yes,
and that's true of the House now, as it is, and really everywhere else. And I think you see a lot of people trying to figure out right now it's not only what makes the Republican base tick. You look at the exits that came out of South Carolina, and of course, we've been doing this a while. You don't really pin it on hard numbers. You kind of pin it on feels and vibes and general direction. There's a lot of people that will not vote for Trump. They just won't go for him. And there was an interesting overlap. It was a question of, do you consider yourself to be a MAGA Republican? And that came out to be about half yes, half no, versus how locked in you are for Trump. And I think the number was like something around 60% locked in for Trump, even 65%, something like that. That soft part that does not distinctly identify with his movement, that's an area for growth if you're a Republican. Again, there's just no reason for Haley to get out. I'm not sure she's the one who carries it forward, but we're still in this interim period right now inside the party where things are still shaking out. It is very strange right now.
Strange would be one way to put it. Yes. And I do think that going forward, if the promise of Haley is that she is able to bring a lot of that Never Trump vote back to the party, I do think I agree with you. There's no going back to Mitt Romney. Like that is in the past. We are beyond that. There is an element of populism in America First that is not only from Trump, but has now cemented itself within the Republican Party. And that's if you say, okay, well, all the signs that are coming in for Haley say stay in the race, alienating herself with that audience. And yes, Donald Trump is transactional, and Donald Trump could, at some point a few months from now, be up on stage in Columbia, South Carolina, announcing his vice president, Nikki Haley. But if that doesn't happen, I do wonder going forward in this process, spending that money and making it a bigger thing does continue to alienate Nikki Haley to the point where you do cross that Rubicon from like, Lindsey Graham's probably on the MAGA side of the river. Nobody really likes him on the MAGA side, but he's still in the tent for whatever reason. And then you have like the Liz Cheneys and the Mitt Romneys that are on the other side of it. And Nikki Haley's She's danced. She's gone back and forth. She has a flexibility. But I wonder,
mega curious.
Yeah, I mean, she's been able to tap dance back and forth. Now, one of the things that you've recently wrote about on 24 site is the VP race, the idea of who will be Donald Trump's vice president. I believe you and I are in agreement that Donald Trump is far more transactional and I would say strategic when it comes to his vice presidential picks than I think people initially think, that it's just going to be the person that pledges the most fealty to him. Who do you put at the top of that list?
So, Ben Carson. He's number one.
Ben Carson.
Yes! That is everybody's reaction.
Off the board.
Yes! Ben Carson.
I had a fan meetup during the election night, and there was one of the guys that showed up. He said, he's like, man, I've made a bunch of money because the British betting books for American politics are always like a week after anything that happens. And so he had me go through the vice presidential, and I'm like picking out, like, I'm like, all right, like deep value, like Byron Donalds is probably a deep value pick that has more, it's priced in better than what it is now. Ben Carson is way deep value. Ben Carson is like 120 to 1.
Yes.
So give me the pitch on Ben Carson.
Man, I just got, I'll hop off on a tangent here, and then we'll come back to Carson. The betting books are insane. That is just ridiculous. Are we allowed to curse on this? Can I curse here?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll bleep it.
All right, this is some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. It's just spectacularly stupid. I was at a conference, this Nationalist Conservative Conference back in September of 2022, in Turnberry Resort in Miami, North Miami. I was there to see Peter Thiel headlined, Ron DeSantis headlined, and Rick Scott headlined. Mm-hmm. And I saw Peter Thiel, who's one of the most influential figures in American politics right now, emphasized, and I would put the exclamation point here by the fact that he's saying he's retreating from politics. Yep. That's always a big tell. Citing Predict It, which is famously wrong. I mean, I would not, really? And, and then I see this Michelle Obama stuff crop up, and, people are like, oh, it's going to be Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like you left out Gerald Ford.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, like Carter's still ticking. So,
right.
At any moment, stand ready and rested.
Ben Carson, here's my absolute first reaction is exactly that. Yeah, I remember the first person who told me that a couple months ago. I'm like, representative? Is there a Senator Carson that I'm missing? I feel wait, Ben Carson.
Ben Carson, Cuba Gooding Jr. in the movie Ben Carson? That's Ben Carson? Yeah.
Yes, gifted Veep steaks.
Yep.
The way that I do these and try to test things to see, who's viable, who's resonating.
Yeah.
And it's really true of all political circles, but especially Trump's organization, his world, Trump world. You see which names come up independently in different corners, and Carson comes up pretty routinely from different factions inside of Trump world, and there's a number of reasons. Number one, he's a black man, and there's a big effort right now by Trump and his team to eat into the support for Biden among black men and Latino men.
Yeah.
You see this reflected.
And that was in 2020 as well. The first Super Bowl commercial they ran was for criminal justice reform. Yes,
exactly. So potentially Ben Carson or potentially Tim Scott works there. The other thing is evangelicals. You still have to play to evangelicals. Far and away, Christian right voters, self-identifying evangelicals, conservative evangelicals, I should note, voted with Trump. But Carson was profligate on the trail in Iowa. He speaks their language.
Yes.
And the other part of this is, you have to look at where Trump is now. I mean, his career has been politics for 8 years now, and he is steeped in politics, and he understands the levers, the machinations. This is a totally different beast than 2016, when slapdash effort, where the three big picks you had remaining were Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich, and Mike Pence.
Yeah.
This is a very studious. He's leveraging it well to get people to play to him, and Carson fits with Trump. He meshes with Trump on a few important points, and this is what I hear repeatedly from my Trump sources. There is a man who is guaranteed to never upstage Donald Trump.
Nope. Nope. No.
Never gonna happen.
He is Ben Carson, like the Arrested Development Milford man, will be neither seen nor heard.
Yes. And Trump, I was talking with somebody who used to be in his administration, who's still in touch with him in his world. Trump felt burned by Mike Pence. He felt like he was disloyal to him for, honoring the Constitution instead of honoring Trump.
Yeah.
And, as bizarre as that sounds, what we're looking at is how Trump is going to make this determination. And, I think this is why, in particular, I don't put people on the list like Marjorie Taylor Greene. They'll float themselves for vice president.
Yeah.
But all my intelligence is that he does not want, what they used to say, another pirate on the ship.
Yeah.
He's got that. He is that.
He's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Carson's at the top. He has a lot of support from different corners of Trump world. And I ranked him above Tim Scott. Because Carson has a longer standing relationship with Trump. Scott's a new entry into Trump world.
Yeah.
And again, remember how Trump operates. New people get a flood of attention.
A lot of love.
A lot of love. That's right, baby. A lot of love when you start. And after the love bombing stops, it tends to fade away.
Yeah, so my covering the Rock Hill rally in South Carolina, the final big rally, the two things based on what you said that struck me. Number one, I wonder, in that limited list, Donald Trump did have to pick from the scratch and dent bin in 2016, but he picked the evangelical because he knew that he needed evangelicals in 2016. Yes. I was at that rally, 6,000 people, standing room only, in a state that is heavily evangelical. He announced that he backed IVF, which in another world would be a controversial thing with evangelicals, and they cheered like he cured cancer. Like, wow. I don't know if he needs to cement that. I think that the evangelical movement now is kind of the dog that caught the car. The animating issue that drove them for years is now no longer a thing. We saw 3 evangelical lane candidates, including Tim Scott, drop out very early. Mike Pence, Asa Hutchinson, and him. None of them could get any real traction. We've seen the median line of what the Republican stance on a post-Roe world continue to slide further from where it would be evangelically to the point where Trump has gotten away with not saying anything about it, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. So I wonder if evangelicals are the priority this time. Now to the Tim Scott thing, boy, love bomb without question. Tim Scott got the superstar speaking slot right before Trump in that rally. And Trump, in one of the most telling, sometimes you can say things that you mean as a compliment to other people, but really they're a commentary on yourself, said Tim Scott was better at talking about him, Trump, than Scott was at talking about himself, and then clarified it by saying, and that shows he has good character. He doesn't like talking about himself at a Trump rally. Donald Trump.
Hashtag never surrender.
Exactly, right? The man who has built an entire brand on talking about himself. So Tim Scott is somebody that I agree with you. I think right now, coming out of the halo of South Carolina, Tim Scott was a big get for them, so he wasn't going with Haley, who he had a lot of connections to. He was a kinder, gentler face. But I don't know if the love affair lasts. I agree with you that the Tim Scott buzz is a little overblown.
Yeah, if you and in building on that here, you see Kristi Noem repeatedly. So she's another person right at the top of the list. And I actually moved her up as I was drafting this. I had her at 5, and I bumped her up to 3 after talking with a good source who, on that point, it's not been a sugar rush for her. She's mentioned by Trump repeatedly, and Trump will throw out canards out there. We saw about 5 days ago or so, when he said his own short list, he included a number of Floridians on there, which more than likely would not work because of the 12th Amendment and the way electors have to cast their votes for president and vice president. Now, it's not not impossible, but it makes it a bigger hurdle to clear for anybody.
Add it to the pile of the constitutional questions we have surrounding Donald Trump.
It's right. Like, if you told me that Martians riding a unicorn on the back of a comet dropped in tomorrow and landed on RFK Jr.'s catamaran, and we've got some Instagram person as president, whatever.
Who knows? I think it'd be good for clicks.
Kristi Noem keeps coming up routinely, and this is there's a mechanical aspect to this. Attempts to win back suburban women. This is the critical weakness in the Trump campaign. It really has been the entire time. If you look back to, my God, you could actually say back to the inauguration itself. There was kind of a novelty vote for Trump in 2016, but the day after the inauguration, you have the Women's March. The pink pussy hats that were out there, a huge crowd, and that has always been a critical weakness for Trump and his coalition. A couple of years ago, I wrote about this over at Yahoo. About Jared and Ivanka's efforts to replace Mike Pence on the ticket with Nikki Haley. For that reason, that was the calculation back then. Kristi Noem could fit that bill. Governor, young, mother, and again, staunchly loyal to Trump, long-standing relationship, and he repeatedly brings her up. And all those things keep her right at the top of the list, just below Tim Scott.
So I totally agree with that. And for me, I think that if you are going to look at the most coalitional need for Trump 2020, I would put suburban women above evangelicals, specifically because not only has it always been a persistent issue, but that issue has been supercharged post-Dobbs. You need somebody that's going to be able to at least, for folks who, including that Haley contingent, we're going to find out exactly how holdable their noses are in terms of a Biden versus Trump binary. I think that it's possible. I don't think that those people, that 40%, I think it is more telling that those Democrats and independents made sure that they voted in the Republican side and not the Democratic side, because it does. To me, it does say, all right, well, we might be less into Biden than we are now, but there's no doubt in every single beyond the polls, and every single one of these elections that have happened post-Dobbs, Democrats have had an advantage because of it. The Noem pick, I think, would be directly challenged by Elise Stefanik in the House, who is the other name you hear when you talk about addressing this. For me, I've always thought that Kristi Noem, it'll be a little bit more serious. The more you're going to have to see her at soccer practices and Pinkberries, so she's a little more suburbs than Sarah Palin, but Stefanik is the other name there. Why do you put Noem ahead of Stefanik right now on your calculations?
Largely on the intel I've been gathering from my sources, repetition. Stefanik has kind of climbed the list recently. And one reason I think I put Stefanik, oh boy, I think either fourth or fifth. It was like right after JD Vance, and Vance sits in there for a different reason. But because Stefanik has risen very fast in this beef stakes, she does have a political team that around her supporting her that is ensconced in Trump world. So that always helps when you have your people, and the same thing is true for Noem. Of course, she has Corey Lewandowski, who is also a fixture in Trump world. Yep. Stefanik has a longtime operative, Garrett Ventry, who, is a fixture inside the Trump world. And
Kimberly Guilfoyle on her podcast with Lee Stefanik, pointing out that she is her pick for VP, or at least heavily that.
Yes. And, just to go back to Carson here for a second, that is why I put him at the top, because it's not just a single pocket in Trump world, but there's enough different factions that talk about him. And I think that's a critical weakness for Scott here, too. He's a new entry into there. Stefanik, she has the street cred, so to say, with Trump and the MAGA world. She was quiet through Trump Russia. I remember covering her during the House Intelligence hearings back when she was an establishment, pro-intel hawk on these things, who also did her level best to run away from us. Which I also would add is true of Will Hurd, who is a mainstay on the media circuit now, but was a ghost when it came to answering questions in the moment. But since then, she became an ardent supporter of Trump, big defender through the first impeachment, the second impeachment. She helped when she ousted Liz Cheney, who transformed into, after January 6th, transformed into one of Trump's biggest opponents. And then she's had a number of moments since then, the college presidents, regarding Israel, Hamas, and a few other, kind of viral moments. Now, the ding against her that I hear is, and this is true of all of them, you don't want to become Steve Bannon. You don't want to draw too much of the spotlight. Yeah. There is this dynamic where Trump, often says he likes people from central casting. He likes people that look good on television. I mean, this is always true of Trump. But you can't draw too much of the spotlight. And that kind of hurts her right now.
Yeah. And talk about the dumb prediction markets. Anybody who puts any kind of money on Vivek Ramaswamy for VP for the exact reason that you just mentioned, he likes him on television, wouldn't be nowhere near the White House. I want to get to JD Vance in a second, but something that is a reality about this, because Donald Trump this would be his last term no matter what, because of the way that things work. The vice presidential pick would be looked more than ever as a ramp to the presidency, because it's not going to be two terms. It would be one term. And usually the way that this works, it's pretty much you're only the vice president to the midterms. And then at that point, you're essentially the front runner for the nomination coming out of the end of that term. It sounds like with the Carson pick, Trump is saying, no, I am not going to be, you're not going to be ramping off my back for the presidency. There'll be a whole primary for that, and everybody can kiss the ring then. But I don't want to put somebody young. I don't want to put somebody flashy. I don't want to put somebody that is going to immediately be a front runner for the nomination. And everyone else we've mentioned, except for Ben Carson, would fit that. That is fascinating.
No coasting.
No coasting. Yeah.
This were when they took Pence, and get to this the 180 in dynamics here with how Trump is his campaign, how he's doing this election. When they took Pence in 2016, it was from a position of weakness inside the Republican Party. Now it's from a position of strength. But, again, the calculations are very much the same. Pence's people, I wrote about this in Piety and Power. On that critical night, Access Hollywood, when Trump, the tape comes out and boasting about popping Tic Tacs and molesting women, he says that Pence and Karen Pence refused to get out. They spent a lot of time praying in over at the governor's mansion in Indiana, and their prayers say they need to stick with him. And the political dynamic that was in play back then, and it's the same dynamic in play here, is that number one, there was an expectation that Trump would lose, thereby catapulting his running mate to the front of the pack for the next cycle. Same thing is true here. If Trump loses, whoever the running mate is, assuming that they don't do something spectacularly ridiculous, upstaging Trump, in terms of ridiculousness, it would be at the front of the pack, would be a leading contender in 28, or in all likelihood, every expectation, as the Constitution dictates, there's only one more term if he actually gets in, then is at the front of the pack again.
It is a very, very consequential pick. So you mentioned JD Vance, and we'll get you out of here on this. What is the story that would be told with JD Vance? Because he is neither black nor a suburban woman.
Explainer in chief. The Trump splainer. These are all facets of the way Pence was. Very close with Junior in his world. And he's young. He can, he put a little bit of polish on Trump, and he has been stepping up more recently to speak on Trump's behalf in the Capitol. The big tell is always, which lawmakers run away from us and which ones we run away from. And Vance loves talking with the press and defending Trump. But I'm not sure that he really adds anything. And if you're going into the general election, you have some critical deficits, especially with suburban women. I don't see where that helps them at all.
I guess the biggest thing would be he is I saw the light, never Trumper. And that was a liability for him when he was running in Ohio, especially through that primary that he had. But in the presidency, if you want somebody that's like, well, hey, look, let me show you exactly how you hold your nose. You take your thumb and your forefinger, and like he would be able to do that because he has a story of, hey, here's what I thought about him, and here's why I now think differently. And Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, which is really what the job of the vice president's going to be anyway. So no matter who it is,
he could become the Trump splainer to the Acela corridor. That would be something.
Yeah. I mean, and who knows exactly how much that will factor into it. But I'll tell you what, no matter what, this VP is not just a normal veepstakes. There is a reality here of proximity to power that will not only factor into the selection, but also then the consequence of how all this is going to come out. And you can find all of the minute-by-minute information by going over right now to 24site.news, signing up there, getting Tom LoBianco's excellent reporting. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you so much.